Please make welcome with a good Farm Bureau welcome to Senator Rand Paul. Senator, thank you for being here. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be home. Last couple of days I've been traveling around Kentucky. I think I've been to about 30, 40 cities so far. But a couple of weeks ago I was up in New York. We're traveling down the road and we come up to the Federal Reserve. Roads blocked, there's sirens wailing. We're sitting there for an hour. So we get out of the car and we say, "What's wrong? What happened?" They say, "The Federal Reserve has been robbed." We said, "Really?" And they said, "But you don't have to worry. The thieves broke in. They got the big safe open. They were standing there, but they were perplexed. They were flummoxed. They didn't know what to do with minus $17 trillion. Which you might think about when politicians come and tell you it's not going to cost anything. It's going to bring $15 billion to our state. From where? From the Federal Reserve, which is already sitting at minus $17 trillion. Anybody want to say something's free and I'm going to bring it to Kentucky, costs nothing, I'm going to help everyone, there'll be a chicken in every pot? It's not free. There are consequences to this. Log on to thedebtclock.org and watch the debt spinning out of control. When your 26-year-old gets in your basement and has been there for 3 years and it's going on 4 years and he can't find a job, it's because our country is drowning in debt. Economists say that we're losing 1 million jobs a year because of this burden of debt. There was a time in this country when we could create 7 and 8 and 9 million jobs a year. But you've got to choose better leaders. You've got to choose better policies because the country is struggling. We can take care of those who can't take care of themselves. But frankly, if you look like me and you hop out of your truck, you ought to be working. Now, people say, "Why can't you guys just get along? Why can't you just hold hands and sing Kumbaya and everything will be okay?" Where's the bipartisan spirit to bring you guys together? Well, I want to tell you that we have agreed on a few things. This is something I think everybody here can agree on. We've agreed to no longer send checks to dead people. Now, you would say, certainly we don't send checks to dead people. Well, in the last 5 years, we sent over $500 million to dead people. One guy collected his dad's check, his Social Security check, from 1971 to 2008. You know how they called him? He died. I think there are some things, though, that we can come together on. People say, "Can't you cooperate? Can't you find compromise?" I think we can, but I think it's important how you define compromise. Is compromise splitting the difference? Sometimes, yes. For example, entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, which is another reason why Obamacare can't be free. We're $35 trillion short on Medicare, which most of us agree that we want to try to continue. $35 trillion short. How are we going to fund a brand new program when we can't afford the ones we have? So if we want to fix these programs, we have to understand something has to change. Probably the age of eligibility for the next generation is going to have to go up. I've told the president this. I've had a personal conversation with the president and the vice president. They both agree in private, but in public it's like, "Oh, Republicans don't care about old people." It's untrue. We all care about preserving these programs, but the status quo is not. I got to be careful. I'm getting too excited here. The status quo isn't going to work. We have to admit that things will have to change. The age will have to rise. If we want to talk about bipartisanship splitting the difference, if we say it needs to go to 70 and Democrats say 68, you can split the difference. It probably has to go to 69. But that's compromise and moving forward and splitting the difference. But there are some things that you don't compromise on, whether we should do it, whether we should get up off the status quo and say we're going to fix it, or whether we're just going to blindly go on as the debt clock spins out of control. Are there some things we can do together? Yes, there are some really good things we can do together. In the last week, Congressman Yarmouth and I had a golf tournament together. It's called the Odd Couples Golf Tournament. Now, I won't let you know who the odd person is. That's up to you. But we had a good time, and we get along personally, and we don't have fisticuffs. We really do get along, and I appreciate him as a person. But we did something for a good cause that we agree on, and probably everyone in this room can agree on. The cause was helpingahero.org. My wife and I have gotten involved in this. We build homes for veterans who have lost limbs in the war. We have a gentleman in Auburn lost both legs and one arm. And you'll never meet a guy who's a more proud American and more resilient and positive. And you know what he says? He said it was glad it was him because he was strong enough to take the force of the blow. I mean, these people are amazing. And so there is bipartisanship for some things like that. And we raised about $150,000 with our golf tournament for these brave young men. There's bipartisanship on some other things, not because we're splitting the difference, because some of us passionately believe in things like the right to privacy. I think your phone calls shouldn't be monitored. Your phone records shouldn't be monitored. Your visa bills shouldn't be monitored. If you're accused of a crime, call a judge. We do it for the worst people in our society. None of us like rapists. None of us like murderers. None of us like people who commit assault. But we always call a judge. That's the way it's always been. It's a protection of our freedoms. But there are people on both sides of the aisle, myself included, who think the right to privacy is an important right and should be defended. About a year ago, they sent a bill through, and it was on pipeline regulations. There had been a terrible tragedy in San Bruno, California. 8 people had died in an explosion. Congress wants to act and do something to fix it. But in their hurry to act, they wanted to pass it on Thursday night. As everybody's leaving town to come home, nobody reads the bills. So we objected. Both of the senators from California castigated me in the media and said, oh, I don't care about people. I don't care about these deaths. No, I just wanted to read the bill. Is it too much to ask to read the bill? So we read the bill, and you know what we discovered? The accident report on the disaster hadn't been written yet. So we said, well, shouldn't we read it? It was coming out the next week. They were going to pass the law to fix the problem before they read the accident report. You know what the accident report said? It said that we should not grandfather the old pipelines, that the old pipelines that were the ones that were erupting and causing these dangers. Furthermore, we read another report from Kentucky from 1985. 2 deaths occurred, and the accident report recommended that we not grandfather the old pipelines in. So by reading the bill, we found out the bill wasn't going to fix anything. The bill was window dressing to say, hey, we acted, we did something, we care, but it wasn't going to fix the problem. So by actually holding the bill up, reading the bill, which really there ought to be a rule, you think, to read the bills before we vote on them? By reading the bill, we actually were able to fix it, make it better, and then it did pass unanimously. Getting rid of the grandfather exemption, old pipes will be tested like new pipes. That's where the problem was. We should try to figure out where the problem is. There are areas we can agree on. I think another one is whether or not any American should ever be detained without a trial. Should any American ever be sent to Guantanamo Bay without a trial? You say, surely that couldn't happen. That is currently the law, that you could send an American without a trial. And you say, well, they're bad people, right? Well, they're accused of being bad people, but could we make a mistake? Have there been times in our history when we make a mistake, when we made mistakes? Ask the Japanese Americans who were put in camps in World War II whether that was fair or just, whether they should have gotten a lawyer, whether they should have gotten a trial. Ask an African American who remembers a grandfather put in jail or remembers somebody put in jail just because of the way he looked at someone back in the 20s or teens in our country. It is important that you get a lawyer. It's important that you have a trial. These are things that really, when you ask our GIs what they're fighting for our freedom, they're fighting for our Bill of Rights. These are issues that should transcend party labels. We had a Boston policeman come down to Louisville at the time of the Kentucky Derby, and he said he was there when the explosions happened, and he rushed to the scene and was applying tourniquets, and it was horrible. It was like a war scene with people dying and limbs strewn about the pavement. And then the next thing, he was part of the chase and part of the manhunt for the people. And he said the sadness he felt originally at the bombing, but then the anger that he felt for these young men who would do this. Anyone who would believe that somehow you're going to advance your religion or a political cause by killing women and children and civilians. And then he said, when we caught them, we had a shootout, and one of them was killed. He said that was justified in a shootout. But he said once we captured and de-armed the last young brother, he said what separates us from them is we didn't drag him through the streets and beat him to death with tire irons. That's not who we are. We're different than they are. It's what separates us from them. It should be what transcends party label, Republican or Democrat, that even the worst people among us, we give them trials. Why? Because sometimes we make mistakes. Anybody remember Richard Jewell? Richard Jewell was said to be the Olympic bomber. Everybody said he met the profile. This guy's got to be guilty. Had he been a black man in 1920, he'd have been strung up from the local tree. But because we live in a country that has due process, you can't give up on that. You can't have fear of terrorism be so much that you're going to give up on the right to trial by jury. These are things that transcend party labels. And I think it's important that we look at these things, look at things where we can have areas of agreement, but realize how important it is. Do I have any sympathy for the Boston bombers? No, I'll go up there. When they're convicted, I'm happy to pull the switch. I have no understanding of people who would kill innocent civilians like that. But do I want these bad people to have a trial? I do, because it's what makes America great. It's what we fought for, and it's something we shouldn't give up on easily. American farmers have overcome so many things. We've overcome pestilence, from the caterpillar to the boll weevil. We produce more per acre than probably anywhere else in the world. Our greatness is in what we produce and what we sell. When people talk about projecting power, our power is a power of a civilization that has created such enormous wealth that we're able to help the rest of the world in many ways. We're able to sell things to the rest of the world. We produce so much in our agriculture that we actually sell to the world. But our power doesn't come in sending more money, tanks, and planes to dictators and despots and people who hate America. I think there shouldn't be another penny sent to Egypt, not one more penny. First, we have to borrow it from China to send it to Egypt. Second, it's against the law. The law says explicitly when there's a military coup, the military aid must end. It's against the law. The other side says, well, we have to engage with the world. This is how we buy friendship around the world. Do you see on the internet, there was a guy staring down one of the tanks. They're American tanks. He's holding up his arms like this, and in the next frames, he's shot. Not by an American, but by somebody sitting in an American tank. Do you think that is giving a warm, fuzzy feeling to the Egyptian people? 80% of them don't want our aid. Their mob burns our flag. Our embassy is attacked over there. I think our embassy is still at risk in Egypt, and we send them more tanks. They may need food, but they can't eat a tank. They've got 4,000 tanks that you bought for them. They have 200 fighter jets that you bought for them. We can be engaged around the world without continuing to arm the world, particularly people who don't like us, don't like Israel, and are a danger and a menace. I say we have to think about things at home. Anybody remember a bridge problem in Louisville? We've got roads and bridges that need to be repaired at home, and there's a finite amount of money. We can't keep sending good money after bad around the world. We need to take care of some problems we have at home. There are ways to do it. I think if we remember what we stand for, where we came from, what we believe in, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the rule of law, if we believe in that and believe in ourselves again, I think there's no limit to what we can do as a country. I want to thank the Farm Bureau for having me today.